like notes through the hourglass. These are the songs of our lives.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Songs of Our Lives. I am Brad Rose. I am a musician, a composer, a writer, the founder of Foxy Digitalis, and somebody who thinks about music and sound far more than is probably healthy. Each week, I invite on a guest to talk about the songs and the music that has made them and stuck with them and all of those things. Before I get into this week's episode, a quick heads up. I mentioned on here that Foxy Digitalis, there is a Patreon that helps support all of this, and the Songs of Our Lives episode, there are exclusive Patreon episodes where each episode has a section for just Patreon members. It's got some extra questions and conversations. Tends to get a little fun and weird over there. And so I started a new tier on the Patreon. It's the Songs of Our Lives tier. It's like, that's the only thing you're interested in. You like the show and you want a little bit more and you want the episodes a week early. There's a couple bonus episodes too. $3 a month. Get you in, get you all that. And yeah, so just something to think about. It is links are in the show notes, of course, and your support is greatly appreciated. Now, this week, this is a fun one. I was really excited about this. It was so good too. That my guest is the one, the only Ilyas Ahmed. I have known Ilyas for a long, long time, even though we'd kind of, we've been in touch, and we were out of touch, then we're in touch, whatever. That's how life goes. But I still have very vivid memories of his first two albums, Between Two Skies, Towards the Night. I'm 95% sure it was the Time Lag mail order mailing list that Time Lag had, because they were editions of like 50 copies, CDRs. And I remember that, and with the Time Lag stuff, he only had limited copies. He only had limited copies. So you kind of had to act fast on some of that stuff. And I remember email came through, saw that, and like immediately was like, oh, I need those. And anyway, both are great albums. They still hold up. And then as it happens, my old label Digitalis did a double CD reissue of those, one disc of each. And that is, I still have such fond memories of that. Anyway, it was almost 20 years ago. Maybe not quite. But Ilyas has made so much incredible music since and done so many amazing things. I mean, collaborations. Last year, the year before, I can't remember what it was, had that amazing album with Jeffrey Cantu Ledesma. He is a member of Grails, which we talked about that because that's freaking exciting because Grails had their first record in 6 years last year. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, sorry, but it's on Temporary Residence and is so good. I've jammed that album so many times, and it's like perfect any time of day, any mood. Like if you're feeling it, it will meet you there. If you are kind of in a dark place, it will accompany you, and it is amazing record. And then he had a solo record called The Dream of Another that was on Geographic North last year. That's one of my favorite records he's ever done. It's just, I don't know, man. Ilyas is the real deal, and it's one of my faves. And as I say in the intro, the first person who was at the Bottled Smoke Festival that I put on in 2007 in LA. He's the first one on the show, and man, good memories all around. This was an absolute blast. It was so excited to reconnect with Ilyas and just talk about music, and the best. So we recorded this a couple weeks ago on Zoom. I hope y'all have enjoyed as much as I did, or at least half as much, My guest today is a musician, a songwriter, one hell of a guitarist, and the first person on this show who also played at the Digitalis Bottled Smoke Festival in 2007. Jesus. It's Ilyas Ahmed. How's it going?
I'm good, man.
Yeah, I was thinking about, it was a couple months ago, found a box of pictures, and there are a bunch of pictures from that weekend in there. And I don't know where they are right now, because I had like one of my favorite pictures. It's you and one of the guys who ran the space out there. Oh, God, what was it called? I don't remember the name of it. Ecoegoe. It was like you sitting
Oh, right. Yeah.
talking to one of their kids, and it's like from behind. I don't know. It's like this really wonderful, like adorable picture.
Oh, that's great. I'd like to see that.
Yeah. But yeah, lifetime ago.
Yeah, long time ago.
So you've had a pretty busy year. You had a solo record out and a Grails record out.
Yeah.
I was gonna like how'd you all know it was basically time to do a new Grails record?
Well, I joined the band, I think almost like 6 years ago now. And because we all live in different parts of, I was going to say the country, but actually the world. Alex lives in Sweden.
Oh, wow.
And then the other guys were all spread across the US. So just by dint of that, the idea of making a record at first just seems daunting of how to even approach doing it.
Right.
Because we get together for tours and we have like a pretty finite amount of time before each tour to practice. And depending on how much we've been touring and how in shape we are and ready to go, it depends on like we have time to come up with something new. I think I think I've spoken about this in maybe some other interviews I've done about it, but I think this lineup of the band has a chemistry that I've experienced where you like play, because I play a lot of improvised music with other people, and within 5 minutes of playing with someone whether it's going to work or not. And the first time that this lineup Grails was in a room together, we came up with stuff that's on that record.
Damn.
So, yeah, it was just it's always just a goal of like wanting to make new music. Like, certainly I make a lot of music on my own, and Emil makes a lot of music on his own, and also in another band. And I think we specifically, as fans of music and record collectors, we want to making records is important to us. Yeah, and like it's also exciting. Like I'd never been in a band situation like this since maybe high school. So
oh wow,
it's exciting for me to like be like outside of like one-off project things, like we're a proper band,
right.
I guess. So
yeah,
and we're working on another one right now. So
oh man, and
yeah,
you guys you recorded in Atlanta, right?
Yeah, we recorded at the tail end of a tour. And then a lot of, because of you can record at home now, like basic tracking was done there, and then like a lot of overdubbing session and phone calls and text messages and tell me what you need and back and forth. And yeah, no, it's cool. And I think because of we just got back from a pretty long tour, and we were talking about like we need to keep the momentum going. Yeah, we're gonna Emil's gonna be out here actually in a week, and he and I are tracking basic stuff.
Nice.
For some new, it's not just gonna be that, but just to have some certain kinds of things on tape.
How'd the tour go?
It was great, really good, really really good. I mean, you could tell that it had been a while since, I think the last time we were in Europe was 2018.
Oh wow.
So, and then also having a new record out. Yeah, it was great. The shows are great. They were really well attended, and everyone was, it was just really, really great.
Awesome.
And seeing the guys is always fun.
Yeah.
So.
That helps.
Yep.
Just sounds like a good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things, so like just sonically to me, it sounds like a Grails record, but it doesn't. It sounds like a Grails record I never could have imagined.
That's great. I mean, I think that's the focus of the band, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a credo, it's that. Like, we want to sound like ourselves, but also try not to sound like ourselves.
Yeah. Was that,
if that makes sense?
No, absolutely. I think that's like it can be a really sort of tough line to walk, of doing the thing we know how to do and doing something else, but that is not so far. Yeah. I don't know. It's
yeah. I mean, you don't want to just be, I mean, I think if there's something I share with the music I make in my own and the band, it's that, like wanting to push yourself as a artist, but also you're not just gonna like make a synth wave record.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, which plenty of people do that. It's fine, I guess. Like,
yeah.
But you know,
so you, speaking of your own music, you also had A Dream of Another on Geographic North.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I don't know. We were just talking, it's been 20 years. Like those first two CDRs came out, what, like 20 years ago? 2003, 4, something like that? God.
Yeah, they were made almost 20 years ago for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is crazy. I mean, yeah, no, it's fucking crazy.
I'm really curious. Like, so this record is really great. And it,
oh, thanks, man.
To me, like the thing I kept thinking of when I would listen to it is it feels like these sort of, like the thing that kept coming, it's like memories where you're not really sure they're actual memories, like, or it's,
oh, I love that.
Or, you know, and so I don't know. I'm just like really curious. I always wonder about this because, you know, I've been making stuff for 20 years, but I'm like like after 20 years, and this is like a really big question, I guess, but like, where do you see yourself in relation to your solo work, or like, what is it like? What are you looking for now? You know, I don't know how to exactly phrase it.
I know what you're getting at for sure. I think specifically with this one, it's funny that you were talking about the first records that I made, like, because we were all at home a lot more than maybe we planned. I had a lot more time to think about things.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely wanted to get back to a place that felt like it did when I was making those records.
Oh wow.
Like I feel like like part of what's home recording particularly is exciting to me is this, where you're just sort of in your own world, kind of lost in your thoughts, and you're trying to make up something that's entertaining, you're trying to make up something that has a narrative. Maybe there's a degree of improvisation or chance that you're not even sure, like, what is this for? I definitely gotten, I started, I think you do something long enough. For me, I started to head in more, it started leaning more towards like conventional song structures, which was great at the time. It's like, I'm really glad I did, because in some ways that's experimental to me.
Right.
And then I just kind of was like, I feel like I was like, what, am I just going to keep making these records that are like almost conventional songwriting with bits of weird bits on top of them? And I'm reducing myself to that. But yeah, I kind of wanted to break it down again and just start all over again. I didn't really know what that meant. I made a lot of music at the beginning of the pandemic that had no guitars. Yeah, and it was like you just kind of whittle away at it and try to figure out like what feels good to you and what feels right to you, and a lot of it's intuition. But I like what you said. I mean, that's a big part of it. I really like that idea of it feeling like a memory, and you're not really sure, like, because it's like it's. I didn't mean it to be like a guitar based as it is, but it's also like not a guitar-y record,
right?
In the way that like there's plenty of those out there now. And I was pretty aware that I didn't want to just do that.
Yeah, I don't think of it as a guitar record at all, which is
cool. That's good to hear. Yeah.
And so
yeah, there's enough good solo guitar records out there that are great. Like,
right.
Yeah, no, but I like that. I like what you said.
Oh, yeah, I really like it. And I really love the cover too. Those Geographic North guys know how to make an album cover.
Yeah, Farbod Kakabi, who does all of the visual element of that label, he's a monster.
Yeah.
Like unreal. Like, yeah, he did the record. He did the album art for the record I made with Jeff Cantu too.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yep.
Yeah, and it's always so exciting when he does it, because you've seen the records I've made, like the visual side is really important to me, but the first time I saw Farbod's art for something I did, I was like, oh, I don't know how to design records at all. I'm just using like a collage that I made. Like, that's not design, that's just a collage. Like,
God.
Like he gives them an identity that surpasses anything that I could. Yeah, no, I love that album so much. That album art.
Did you give him any direction, or was it just like go do your thing?
No. I never. I wait for him to ask me.
Awesome.
If he needs anything, which is rare.
Before we really get into this, and since you mentioned it, any stuff on the horizon with Jeff? Or if you can't, you can talk about it.
There's a bunch of things on the horizon with different people that I just can't talk about.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, mainly because I don't. Yeah. Like I don't. It doesn't just involve me.
I understand.
So I would have to ask that, but yeah, there's definitely more stuff coming, collabs and solo stuff. Awesome. And like I said, there's a new Grails record that we're just very starting out on. So, man. So yeah, lots of music coming.
Sounds like it's gonna be a busy 2024.
Yeah,
or 25. Sure. Who knows? This stuff takes forever to,
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, totally.
But, okay, well, that's awesome, and yeah, there's certain collabs, especially from the past, that I hope maybe make a comeback, but I won't talk about it.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of things from the past, all right, let's go. We're gonna start all the way at the very beginning, and we're gonna talk about what is the first song that you can remember.
Oh, yeah, I thought about that for a while. It's hard. I mean, I think I might have written because Brad sent me a questionnaire earlier just to kind of get dip the toes in the wet water about this thing, and
yeah, this stuff's really hard to come up with like off the top of your head. So I've learned.
Yeah, no, it's also good because it like otherwise I just stutter for a long time trying to remember. Like,
yeah.
Like I think song-wise, it's probably Charlie Brown related.
Yeah.
Like the Christmas songs, like those tunes are forever embedded in my brain, and they're sad and beautiful, which is like that kind of approach means a lot to me. But I think Eyes Without a Face might be the first song that made me think about like playing music could be cool.
That's
like a lot of these questions are probably going to be tied into like being someone who wants to make music too.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I've really loved about doing these is I feel like I walk away from them getting a better understanding of people's sort of like creative approach and why they do what they do. I hadn't heard this song in a long time, and I had a conversation a couple years ago, an interview I was doing with Ben Chasney from Six Organs of Admittance about Steve Stevens.
Yeah.
And how.
Yeah, Ben's a big Steve Stevens fan.
Yeah.
We've texted a lot. We've actually texted a lot about Steve Stevens.
Yeah, because
he sent me a great video of Steve Stevens talking about being inspired by Leo Kottke, which blew my mind.
He sent me the same video.
Yeah.
It's because it is. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I keep telling Ben he needs to start teasing his hair.
Oh gosh, and like just go for
get a Kramer.
Yeah,
yeah,
just lean into it. The thing that this song. I mean, there's a lot of things about it, but God, the Perry Lister's vocal, like the background vocals, or I guess she's not in the background parts, but God, so good. Like, yeah,
it's a really spooky song.
Yeah.
And just like I think also just like if I think about it as being a kid, the idea of Eyes Without a Face is kind of fucking scary. Yeah, like there's something very menacing about it, and the music like fits the vocal really well. It's like a spooky song. But then also kind of rocks in the middle.
Yeah, I know. Like it goes like when Steve Stevens goes into this full like 80s hair metal riffing or something, and then the bridge is really weird.
I've never read about the backstory of the song. I can only assume that Steve Stevens was like, enough of this bullshit. I need to this needs to rock at least for a minute.
That's exactly
before it goes back to like your faux Sinatra shit. Right. You know what I mean?
When at one point it seems like Billy Idol's kind of trying to rap or something. I don't even know. Like in the bridge, it's very strange.
Oh right, yeah. He starts talking faster.
Yeah,
and he was such a. I mean, again, music was so. I mean, I'm a little bit older. Like I'm almost 50 now, and music at that when you're a young person was so less ubiquitous than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would, I mean, granted, I wasn't hanging out in coffee shops and bars when I was in first grade or whatever, but like you would have to like turn the radio on or watch MTV or specifically seek it out. I
Yeah.
don't feel like it was just in the air, at least where I grew up in the suburbs. Granted, if you were in a city, it's much different, but yeah, it was just like, it was less, you would like, I always equate music at that time as something you overhear rather than something that you're confronted with in your face. And now you're confronted with music all the time. Like you can't go anywhere without fucking hearing music, which is actually kind of annoying. Like I don't need to hear music everywhere. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? So yeah, like I almost feel like when I think about Eyes Without a Face, I'm like, where did I even hear it for the first time? Did I watch? I must have watched a video or something,
like MTV or just on the radio in the car with your parents or something, right? Like,
yeah.
I think about that all the time. Like I even when I was a teenager and stuff, because I think you're maybe a little older than me. I'm 44, so like, you know, we're around the same age, and I think about like compilations were such a big deal to me. Like compilations and soundtracks, because it was a way where you could hear a bunch of bands, but for like,
yeah, for sure.
You know, if you're 15 and you only got $10.
Yeah, totally.
And I like, that's just like, compilations exist now, but it's just not the same thing.
Yeah, it's a different thing. Yeah, for sure.
And so
yeah. I mean, I think accessibility now with music is, it's just different.
Yeah,
like
it's hard to. Yeah, it's so. I even as someone who does stuff with this all the time, it's still hard for me to get my head around sometimes. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, on a totally different note, what's the song that either makes you cry, or it has made you cry, or makes you feel some kind of way that even if you don't cry, you feel evokes that?
I would probably always, my go-to for that question would always be Candy Says by the Velvet Underground.
Oh, man.
I mean, always chokes me up. It's such a beautiful song.
Yeah.
Beyond even what it's about, it's just such a sad song.
I know.
And it's so simple and beautiful. It's like, yeah, there's a bunch, but that would be the one that's off the top of my head.
I know. I hadn't listened to this in a minute, and when I put it on, kind of prepping for this, it's just, it immediately just kind of hits you. And it's not even like it's like hits you hard, because it's got like such a
it's more subtle. Yeah,
it's got like a real tenderness to it, but it's so sad. And
and it feels like just in slow motion too.
Yeah,
that's another thing about that song, is like you put it on, it just stops time a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, but
what a record!
It's a good one.
What a record that is! Jeez, that's like
great record.
Well, on the other side of that, what's a song that'll always kind of put you in a better mood?
I mean, there's lots of songs, and it always changes. Generally, there's a Nas record, Illmatic, that almost every one of the songs makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Or, conversely, like, there's a lot of Velvet Underground songs, like Sweet Jane always makes me in a good mood.
Yeah.
Since I was a kid, like Loaded was the record that I would put on if I was feeling pretty good,
mm-hmm.
And if you're feeling kind of sad and lonely, like the third record would be the record you put on.
Right.
So I'll stick with,
Yeah, I feel like
there's a lot though. Yeah, there's a lot.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were talking about Prince, but they were like, I could answer every one of these questions with a Prince song, and I was like, I should do I should do a subset of these episodes where it's like you have to pick one band, like the Velvet Underground would be another band, where you could probably pick a Velvet Underground song.
Yeah, or like David Bowie or something like that. Like which Bowie song makes, because he's in the same boat.
Right.
Like there's Bowie songs that make me cry, and then there's ones that I can just put on at any time, and it's going to make me feel better. Like,
I love the Nas answer though. I like that. That's like all time shit right there.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, that era of hip hop is, like not to sound like an old man or whatever, but like that era of hip hop was so good when it was just kind of murky and like there was like an actual narrative to like what was being talked about in the songs, and like music sonically it was really interesting instead of just kind of no rapping at all and
Yeah.
no changes in the sound. And once they became like club bangers, I kind of not this. I mean, there's plenty of awesome hip hop now,
Right.
obviously, but it's just crazy to me to think about like Tribe or Nas or that stuff being like mainstream hip hop.
Oh,
It
no.
seems so. It's deep. You know, like people don't really talk about hip hop in the way they talk about, say, like the Velvet Underground or something. But like Nas is just as deep to me, or like, you know.
Oh god, yeah. I think
It's just a different.
I think about that all the time too. Like one of my favorite records ever is that, and it's maybe my favorite hip hopper, is the Tupac Machiavelli record. And
Yeah, it's a great record.
there and like sonically, it's so weird. Like there's one track that has like throat singing on it. Like who? And this was in the '90s. You know, like it's
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, the shit was weird. It was like avant-garde music. It was super. I mean, those Public Enemy records are the same thing, where you're like, this is why it's crazy. Like, you know, I can't. You know, I can't remember if it was tied in the same time as when I got into them, but like I remember reading interviews with Kevin Shields in like '91 where he talks about Public Enemy specifically, and it's like that's just fascinating to me. Like
really
that overlap. Like I wonder if that still happens now. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It's not for me to say.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And I also can't even imagine like making a record like Illmatic as your debut record, and how like it's like where do you go from there? Jesus.
Yeah, like when you kill it so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, he made a couple great records, and he didn't get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing like a video where this is really unfortunate in a lot of ways now, timely. There was like I think he hadn't put out a record in a while, and there was a video with like him and Puff Daddy in a club, and there's like champagne, and there's like a tiger in a cage or something, and I was like, oh man, this is not a good thing.
Yeah, I always think about that. I was talking. I don't remember who I was talking about it. Maybe on an episode of this that I recorded last week, but we were talking about the Lauryn Hill record and how it's like, you know, you make a record that's so good, and then you just don't ever make it. It's just like fuck it.
Yeah, you just mic drop.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
like yeah,
and
yeah, that's yeah, for sure. Like that's a real thing.
Yeah.
I can't imagine where you kill it so hard that out of the gate. Like,
but I always would imagine too that you know, people like that have just vaults of stuff that they've made and they just don't release it. I don't know. I always wonder, because it's like I just keep making stuff. And obviously, not saying I've ever made a record like Illmatic or the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill or anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, I would always make stuff. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that kind of attention on something that you did, of course, that's gonna change your brain chemistry.
Yeah,
you know, like I don't see how it cannot. It's sort of in that way that people criticize celebrities in a way that, not that I hold celebrities on any pedestal at all, but when people talk about a celebrity's experience or how they behave as if they're in the same position. I'm just like, you have no fucking idea what it's like to be that person. Good and bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I don't, you know, like I'm a big D'Angelo fan, like most of us are. Voodoo. I can't imagine what it wasn't his first album, but like when you kill it that hard, like, yeah, like who knows? It's easy to sit in my, you know, on my couch and be like, why don't you just make another record, bro?
Right.
Like, just do it. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
Jesus. Like,
yeah. I think D'Angelo came up with the same conversation, because that's another example. It's like, yeah, you make Voodoo, and then 14 years later, out of nowhere, you're like, oh, got a new record out. Here's Black Messiah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, those are the people I look up to the most. The people who want to pull the rug out from under them. Like, you know, since we're talking about songs, I always think about someone like Scott Walker, who's just, you know, outside of when he tried to do exactly what he wanted to do, he went through a phase of making maybe not the best records, but then you come back and you drop Tilt, and it's like, there you fucking go. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, those people to me are kind of like the beacons or something.
Totally,
You know,
totally agree. Well, okay, this is a good segue to the next question, which is, what is objectively the greatest song of all time?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, obviously,
Yeah.
and obviously it's predicated on how you feel each day. I mean, yeah, I think initially when you were you sent me a questionnaire about this, I was thinking about it, and I think I said a Scott Walker song,
Yeah,
"You're on Your Own Again," which is a song I can listen to a million times. It's just perfect.
yeah,
But like even like the song "Oh My God" by Tribe Called Quest. I've listened to that song like thousands of times, and it makes me so happy every time I listen to it. Like,
yeah,
or like jazz. There's Coltrane songs, or there's fucking Derek Bailey things that I've listened to a million times. Is that a song? You know what I mean?
right.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, I get why you're asking for sure. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, that's a tough one. I mean, there's obviously no answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always think it's interesting to see kind of where people's brain goes and how you think about it, less than what the answer is.
Yeah.
I do think, yeah, like, God, I like the Tribe Called Quest. I mean, that's like one of those songs too, where it's always amazing to me, a song that you can hear 100 times and it still sounds like,
it still kills.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
You know, I mean, because there are songs that I really like, but if I heard it 20 times in a row, I'd be sick of it. But then there's songs like that where it's like, I could probably listen to it 20 times in a row and be like, this fucking rips.
And not be tired of it. Yeah. I mean, that's something that like Ian MacKaye talks about with Fugazi, which is pretty amazing. Because I think that band is never really talked about as like their catchiness.
Mm-hmm.
And they worked on arrangements in a way that was like, this needs to be as hooky as possible.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to listen to this 1,000 times and not be tired of it. And people wouldn't talk about Fugazi in terms of being songwriter.
Right.
It's like, but they wrote great songs that were super catchy that you can listen to a million times. And like,
yeah,
I mean, Repeater is a really catchy song.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, it's got lots of hooks.
Yeah. God, I mean, that's a really, yeah. God, I mean, there are those Fugazi records that I can't even imagine ever getting tired of any of that stuff, because it just,
yeah.
That's a really good point, though.
Yeah, it's a testament to that thought process is like they're thinking about that. And like, I've read a lot of interviews with Hank Shockley, who produced those early Public Enemy records, and he says the same thing. Like, you need to be able to listen to this 1,000 times and not be tired of it. Like if you hear like a Harry Styles song, I can't imagine listening to that 1,000 times and not wanting to kill yourself. Like
you're getting, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Just be
just kidding.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Or just be bored, like it's just boring.
Yeah.
Objectively, it's boring. Like, I feel like if you're someone who makes music and you're a lifer with it, I feel like it's your responsibility to find value in everything. Is that if you're an artist, if you can't find something to like about something, it's your fault, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not the thing's fault. So I can hear something that's like, I don't like it aesthetically or like off the bat, but I can maybe it's your responsibility to find something about it. And there's something like stuff like Harry Styles, there's just like nothing there. There's nothing good about it at all. I'm so fascinated by that. Like,
yeah,
how did this work?
Right. Yeah. How did we? Yeah.
Like, I don't, and it's, you can't trick people. Like, people like it. I'm really fascinated by it. Like,
yeah, I think that's a really interesting. One of the early episodes of this I did with Eric Mingus, who's Charles Mingus's youngest son, and
oh shit,
whoa, yeah,
does he make music?
Yeah, he's really good. He plays bass, of course, but he plays guitar.
Oh, wow.
But he's a vocalist primarily. Like, his singing is unbelievable.
Oh wow,
he did this thing early.
I'll check that out. I didn't know that.
I'll send you this one video. He did this. He has the song that he wrote, and he's been doing like a research project on the Mingus Mill in North Carolina, like where his family comes from. And he wrote this song about it.
Oh, cool.
And performed it like at the site with Yo-Yo Ma. And it's one of the most
Whoa, wow.
unbelievable things I heard all year. But he was talking about one of the things his dad taught him was like, like when you listen to something, even if you don't like it, like try to find something about it that you can like appreciate or say, like, people and so, yeah, I always wonder about that too. Like, cause there are things that I really struggle with that but I know, like you said, it's like, I know people, like, if someone tells me they like it, I'm not going to be like, no, you don't. You're just saying, like, I'm not that kind of asshole.
Yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like,
but I want to understand, and it's like hard for me to understand, and that's like a me problem.
Yeah, there's certain things that are just like unbearable.
Mm-hmm.
I was having dinner with some friends yesterday, and we were talking about that era of like Woodstock '99 rap metal bands.
Yeah,
and it's really hard to find anything about that that's fun.
Yep, I don't
at all. Like,
that is a genre I don't understand at all.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Well, okay, well, kind of in this vein, like, what's a song that you did love at one point, but now not so much? You can't really. You listen to it and you're like, oh.
I mean, that's a tough question because I don't feel like I renounce anything that I've ever really liked in my life. I mean, there's stuff where it's like, I mean, I listened to the Chili Peppers when I was younger, but like, I'm not embarrassed about that at all. And maybe still listen to them. I don't know. I mean, stuff that's like, I kind of think of like the stuff where you're younger and you're maybe like listening to like weirder stuff. Like maybe you're listening to Sebado and Sonic Youth, and like maybe you're just getting the jazz, but at the same time, like maybe you like Ned's Atomic Dustbin or something. That's the first. I didn't like that band, but I'm trying to think of like, I mean, I was really into U2 when I was younger, and I find Bono pretty cringy now.
Yeah.
That I think it's actually more with U2. It's Bono.
I agree.
That I find. It's not the band. The band still sounds pretty good.
Yeah, and that's like, yeah, I was thinking about that because you had With or Without You on your list. And
and I mean, it's kind of a great song,
right? Like it is. It's. I have to like mentally get past the Bono part. Like, not even, and like he sounds good on it. Like, I'm not even saying but it's just Bono sucks. Like, he's such a.
Bono sucks. His lyrics are pretty atrocious. It's like a high school kid trying to be deep.
Right.
Just saying really obvious things as if it's like the deepest thing in the world. But like there's cuts on the Joshua Tree that I think are total bangers. And that band musically is kind of like a Joy Division-y Gang of Four-ish light. Like they're not anymore. I mean, obviously not anymore. Right. Now they're like super embarrassing. But like just music, like even like if you see like a commercial and you're like, what the fuck is this? And it's probably U2. It's like a ad for a cell phone, like a charger or something. But I would say like I can't listen to U2 the way I used to listen to them, and I wonder. I think it's probably because of Bono.
I think it's the same thing. Like if it was somebody else singing, well, I don't know. I don't even think I could hear like a cover of it and. Like if it was a good cover,
and get past it.
Yeah, because it's still
like doesn't John? I mean, I'm not a Johnny Cash fan, but doesn't he sing that song One? He does a cover of that song One.
Maybe so. Yeah,
and it's like it's pretty good because he sings it in this kind of, and that's a song. Like when I saw that tour in '91 when it came out, and objectively that was an insane visual thing. Like predated what I assume Stadium or Normo Dome shows are like now, and I remember that album came out and it was pretty ubiquitous, and that song was like, it's pretty cringy. Like it's not, we're one, but we're not the same or something. Like that
is literally like high school poetry bullshit.
Yeah, that's not a deep thing. But then again, like I think I've heard the Johnny Cash version of it, who I'm not a fan of at all, and remember thinking like, wow, this is kind of brutal. It's a brutal fucking song. Like the delivery of the song is like, it's an interesting thing to think about. It's like,
I'll have to listen to that because I was talking to somebody the other day on one of these about 9 Inch Nails and Trent Reznor, and like I find his delivery really annoying. Like I loved it when I was in high school, but it's like this, it's the whiny thing. But they have that song "Hurt" and Johnny Cashed it. I was like, the Johnny Cash version is great because it's out like it's the same kind of thing. Whereas it's so kind of bleak and not in a forced way because Johnny. I mean, he did all those covers when he was. I don't think
he was like dying, right?
And so it's got this sort of, I don't know, like drama to it that is really understated but really heavy.
Yeah, for sure, totally. So yeah.
I'll have to listen to the one cover because that sounds really.
Yeah, maybe I'll just go down this when I get off with you. I'm just gonna start listening to you too, like, all day. It could happen. I don't know. I feel like there's a legend. I feel like a friend of mine told me there's some legendary Joshua Tree bootleg of just long versions of those guys playing those songs for like 20 minutes, which
that
sounds up my alley for sure.
Great. I mean,
yeah, it sounds great, right? Yeah. Hopefully Bono won't be on it.
Yeah, hopefully it was like when he was out for a smoke or something.
Yeah, he was getting a leather jacket or something.
Okay, well, this is a question that always kind of trips people up, myself included, but you can make your own context. But what's a song that some group of people, some person absolutely hates, but you don't care, you love it?
Oh yeah. Trying to think of something that's like, it's hard for me because I don't know what's popular anymore. Right. So like I'll probably be really dated of how I think about that. Like, a song that people hate that I love, that I'm okay with. Yeah, I'm kind of stumped by that. Like,
it's a hard one. I had to pick a song that I really love, but my daughter really hates it. So anytime I try to play it on the stereo, she just gets mad and yells at me.
Which song is that?
Rasputin by Boney M. That
I don't know that song.
This weird like German disco song that's about it's about like Rasputin being this sexy lover of women. It's the most absurd song.
I mean, again, to age myself or date how much, or more importantly, like how much I pay attention to what's popular. Like, there was that song. There were Ricky Martin songs that were really popular, and I loved them, and everybody I knew hated them.
Oh yeah,
but like I can find value in stuff like that. Like like now it's hard to quantify that because like we live in an era now where no one wants to express an opinion negatively about anything, right? Like everything's okay, everything's permissible. Right. And then if you hang out with your record collecting buddies who are all assholes and don't like anything that's even remotely popular.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I love the song. I love Phil Collins' song. I love Susudio, and people seem to really dislike that song. Right. I love that song.
Yeah.
I mean, I just bought No Jacket Required again I haven't had it in 40 years. And they're all bangers.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's a perfect, a perfect answer. Cause I know what you mean. Like, like I will be excited about something like that. I can't think of a specific example, but yeah, I'll be hanging out with all my weirdo music friends and they'll just be like, I'm like, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
yeah. And I'm also such a contrarian asshole that like,
right.
If somebody says I hate this, I'll be like, oh, they're the great. Yeah. It's the greatest thing in the world. Right. Like, in the same way that like, you listen to like Merzbow around someone like that, and they're, you just committed an atrocity,
right.
Like to their ears or something. So
yeah, I mean, in some ways, like in the sort of wider public, yeah, something like Merzbow is something that probably most people who heard it would hate it, but I fucking love it.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Yeah, I don't love it.
Well, I don't know that I do.
I tried to. I think I pretended I loved it for a long time.
Yeah, I love some of it for sure. I am not, and I'm not a harsh noise person. I'm like too soft. I think. Like I've realized because a lot of the sort of experimental stuff that happens around here is way more in the harsh noise realm, and so
interesting. Still,
yeah. Huh. Like Tulsa's always like a good 10, 15 years behind the curve. So,
okay.
But it's like, I want to go and support people, but God, I really don't have a good time. Like,
yeah, it can be. I mean, it can be fun to see live for sure.
Yeah.
And some, like I sold most of my noise records, but the one, like there's this band Voice Crack that I still love and listen to all the time. And there's certain Merzbow records that I still love. Like, but yeah, I know, I hear what you're saying. Like,
yeah,
seeing it live is a totally different experience.
It
Like,
is.
you can be so into it. And
yeah, it's hard to translate that onto a record, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going totally different direction here. What is the most romantic song?
Yeah, I think when you sent me that questionnaire, I think I said I Feel Love by Donna Summer, which just to me just feels like a very romantic song.
Yeah, it's so good.
I mean, I think there's like a litany of David Bowie songs that feel really romantic to me, like Stay, that song on Station to Station, I feel like is a really romantic song. Like, and also, like romance is tied to your own experience. Maybe you have feeling, maybe a U2 song could be
maybe with or without you.
With or without you is romantic to someone. You know what I mean? Like, I don't.
Yeah, no.
I don't know.
I do love that Donna Summer song. God, her voice is so.
It's a great song. Yeah,
and yeah, the production on it, and that's the other thing about that. Like the production on it still sounds like super contemporary to me. Like it sounds like
it sounds like the future.
Yeah,
and
it's she's one of the.
Yeah, I think that song, if I'm not mistaken, I think when Bowie and Eno were making their records together and those my favorite Bowie records, like I think there's a typical story of Eno coming into the studio with that record saying this is the future. Like I've heard, because it's Giorgio Moroder who made the track.
Right.
And it's when you think about it, it has that sort of like Can-ish beat to it, like kind of Kraftwerky. Yeah, so it still sounds like the future, which is, again, talking about what we're saying about like you need to be able to listen to something 1,000 times. Like I could listen to that song whenever and be stoked.
Yeah, and it's so good. And the production of it, then her voice, and then just
and her voice,
it's the star of the show in a song full of stars. Yeah. Well, okay. What's a song that changed your perspective on an artist, either for better or for worse? I always thought of this question is for better, but then somebody answered it. There was an episode where they picked a Wu-Tang song saying like it made me realize Wu-Tang was past it. I was like, oh, I never thought of it in that context. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, but yeah, there's stuff. That's an interesting way of thinking about it. Like, certainly hearing Trout Mask Replica for the first time changed my brain, rewired my brain. In a way that, like, the first time I heard it, it made perfect sense to me. I didn't have to work to like it, which I think is probably, I don't know. I would assume most people's experiences with music like that is the opposite. It's like you have to learn to like something like that. And that for the first time, like, kind of made sense to me. In the same way that like people talk about Syd Barrett being weird, that just sounds normal to me.
Right.
Like that's super normal. Like that's what singer-songwriter music should sound like to me. It just sounds normal. Like I had to go backwards with rock music and like, I didn't listen to the Stones before I listened to Trout Mask Replica, and for the longest time I thought the Stones were terrible. I thought they were boring. And I love them now.
Yeah.
A different way.
That's interesting. Yeah,
but there's things, there's things I hear that make me want to run away from it. Like, I don't think I ever need to hear, like I don't play acoustic guitar so much anymore in recordings.
Mm-hmm.
I still love it. I still like listening to certain people do it, but there's so much of it now. There's nothing specifically that made me decide this, but like I gradually was like, I don't need to hear acoustic guitar anymore. I want to hear something for my own, like for myself, like, because we're talking specifically how it affected your perspective, personally, right?
Yeah.
Like, I definitely was like, there's other people doing it.
Yeah.
Not that I'm like so great and I'm changing the world with what I do a bit. Yeah, I mean, it was like, okay,
Yeah.
there's enough people doing it.
Yeah.
And well,
Yeah.
and maybe not so well.
Yeah. Yeah. As with all things.
Yeah, as with most things.
Yeah, I think you had Frownland on your list, which is such.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Like the thing I love about that.
I mean,
song,
it's the first song
Right.
on Trauma.
and it to me like
Yeah.
I remember hearing it for the first time, and I loved it when I first heard it because it has this. To me, it has this feeling where, like at any moment, like with only the sort of slightest provocation, like the whole thing could fall apart. Like because it.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
and there's times where it sounds like there's three or four, however many people playing in different rooms.
What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, it's like, does anybody hear anybody else? And then it'll kind of come together, and then it's still like however many 40, 50 years later, still it's just I mean, and I feel like
it's like the greatest.
And I feel like there's so much music that I like, and like it's like trying to recapture this, like like you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally. Yeah. I think, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you hear things, it's timing, it's where you're at in your life. And it's like, I mean, if it was a year later or a year earlier, who knows, maybe it would have just been not that experience. But yeah, that, like I've never made music. Like I think a lot of my favorite music and stuff that falls in that category that changed my life, I don't think you would listen to the music I make and be like, that dude loves Captain Beefheart, or maybe, or like I love all Tecker. I don't think people seem surprised that I like techno and stuff like that, but I don't, it shows people short-sightedness that you have to listen to the thing that you make.
Right.
Yeah. That early Warped stuff changed my life. Like it was awesome. It was like exactly what I wanted to hear,
Yeah, no, I think like Constellation Records in the late 90s was, I still think about when I first heard like Godspeed, and I was like 18 or 19, and like I had never heard anything like that, and I don't think anybody would listen to anything I've ever made and think like, oh yeah, you are really into Godspeed and like Do Make Say Things, like. But anyway,
right.
Well, what do you? How much of like do you consider yourself like do you pay attention to lyrics? Like, do lyrics matter to you?
They can matter, but I can also tune them out.
Okay.
I can tune singing out in a way, like my partner Sarah, like she pays attention to lyrics and can also like it can ruin a song for her. And that's totally fine. Like I feel actually really lucky that I don't have that, because I would probably not like a lot of music. Because in general, I'm not a huge fan of singing. If I like the person's voice and it's mixed in a way that doesn't get in the way, then it's fine. I can just kind of get past it. Or if the lyrics are terrible, which most people's lyrics aren't that great.
Sure.
But then there's people like Scott Walker or like, Judy Sill or Bill Fay or whatever. Like the lyrics are like just seem like the deepest shit ever.
Right.
Like.
So do you have like, what are your favorite lyrics? Do you have like, I mean, I think you could pick about anything by any one of those three artists.
I mean, I wrote Scott Walker for sure. Yeah. I always really loved Guy's lyrics in Fugazi. They always meant and still mean a lot to me. They were just kind of the way you were talking about Frownland. It was like there were so many different things at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it could be about something, but also it was so open-ended and so loaded in imagery. Like, I would say that's, or like, like Leonard Cohen, like the obvious, there's the obvious ones, but Guy's lyrics are, I think about more lately.
Yeah, I think that's really good. Is there any song in particular that would jump out at you?
I mean, the sad ones, like Last Chance for a Slow Dance is so good.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's so good.
Like,
it's like one of my,
it's such a great song.
Yeah. It's like one of the great song titles too. Like, God, that's such a good song title.
Yeah. It's cool. I mean, yeah.
It tells you what you need to know.
I saw, right. Like, I think it was either the first or second time I saw him when I was 16 in New York City. And it was right before I think it was right after Study Died and Nothing came out. So they were playing stuff that was going to be on the Kill Taker, and they played that. And I remember talking to my best friend, who's still my best friend. I was like, did he say like Last Chance for a Slow Dance? Like, and then they played that, and we were like, fuck, like, like everything about that's amazing. Like, yeah. And then the album came out, and it's like, it was Last Chance for a Slow Dance. Like, yeah, great. I mean,
that's awesome. That's a really good. I love that. That's yeah. Fugazi. It's funny. Like Fugazi is a band that is held in obviously such high regard, but I still feel like they don't get the credit they deserve for how like good they were in the ways they were good. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, no, I know what you mean. They're one of those bands that are held in regard by people. This isn't across the board, but sometimes I'm like, the people who should be listening to them aren't listening to them.
yeah,
They're basically like a art rock psych band.
right.
But then you get like vegan hardcore kids who are like, just want to talk to Ian about being straight edge.
Right.
And it's like, you know,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. It'll be interesting to see how their legacy turns out. And also it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like, but it's one of those things that like, you know, we live in the era of YouTube or whatever. People like feel like they saw a band because they watched YouTube videos, which is just so pathetic to even think about.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't. None of that translates, right? Like, you know, like people have actually said to me, like, "Oh, I've seen that band." I'm like, "When did you see them?" Like, "Oh, I've watched YouTube videos," and I'm like,
That's not
the same thing.
It's not even remotely.
You didn't see that band.
Yeah.
Like,
You saw a video.
you saw a video on fucking YouTube
on your tiny little screen, probably on your phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay. What's a song that you have or you can listen to the most? Which we've talked a lot about this, songs you can listen to 1,000 times, but what is the one or one of the ones? It's hard to have the
one. Yeah, I would say one of the ones. I mean, it just depends. I mean, there's Coltrane songs I can listen to ad nauseum. Like we were talking about Tribe, like, oh my God, I can listen to it at any time, and it still feels awesome. Like, there's like tons of Bowie songs that feel like that. Like even the hits, you know, like even Pretty Things, like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just the obscure B-side bangers, those are in there too, but yeah, I just feel like I feel like with music I love, I can listen to a record over and over again, and it's fine. You know, like if I love it, I love it. And that's just, there's no ceiling on that, you know, like, so yeah, like I'm still a huge music fan. And whenever I find something that I'm just like, oh yeah, I can listen to this forever, you know, like,
right.
Yeah,
I'm going up.
So the list, it can be anything. It can be anything. It could be like abstract noise, or it could be like a dub record or something like that. Like,
I'm going to go off script here, and you didn't pick this question, but I'm curious. Like, what is there? Do you remember the last thing you heard that, like, this year or whenever, that is something that you were like really like, oh shit, I really love this, and like that was new to you?
I'm actually just like gonna grab this record. This is something I just got in the mail that killed me. I don't know if you follow Seance Center on.
Oh yeah.
You know that, and he's always. I'm not really sure how you pronounce it. It's ecoegoe, ECOEGOE. It's this group led by a double bass player.
Oh man.
And I just got this record, and immediately I was like, oh, this is going to be something that I listen to forever. Like, it's kind of like a more narcotic Stumbling Necks, who are like a band I love. Yeah,
that's
awesome. That was the first thing off the top of my head.
Okay. I'm gonna have to look.
Yeah,
that up.
no, I mean, there's always stuff like, that was the first thing I thought. I think a newer band that I'm always blown away with is Space Africa. Like,
oh my God,
I love kind of everything they do, and
yeah,
I feel like that's a band that every time that something comes out, I love. Like, I'm always really excited.
I'm right there with you. I love that, and that thing they just put out with Rainy Miller.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah,
so good.
Yeah. It's like, that's what pop music should be, right?
Yeah.
Like,
awesome.
Yeah, great song, great album.
All right, well, I'm gonna have to go check out. It was Echo. I'll find it. Seance Center.
Yeah, just look at the Seance Center Instagram. Like you'll see.
That's.
I mean, yeah, I messaged him and I was like, "Yep, take my money." Always like take my money.
I know. I feel that,
which is awesome.
I know.
I mean, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, what's the sexiest song?
Oh yeah, you did ask. I would say "Goodbye Horses," that Q Lazzarus
Oh
song.
my god.
I mean, the vocal is so good, the beat is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was the question. I was like, it's either gonna be that or it's gonna be "Moonlight on Vermont" by Captain Beefheart, which is like the same, like the rhythm and
yeah.
I don't.
Goodbye Horses that's another one of those songs that is, I can't believe it's 30 years old. I don't know. I mean, that whole story of
it's like a perfect song.
Oh my god, it's unbelievable, and she sounds so.
And she couldn't get a record deal or anything. It's just like so crazy to me. Like you can come up with a banger like that, and
nobody. Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah, it's fucked up. Yeah, I agree.
Didn't she die like last year or the year before?
Last year, yeah.
God.
Yeah, it was like working at a IKEA or something. It's just sad.
Yeah.
Such a bummer.
Yeah, like if you write a song like this, that's, I don't know. I mean, the world is not just, the world is fucked up and terrible, but it's like, come on, if you write a song like this,
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's always been my barometer of like anything in my career that has happened. I'm always like, it's all gravy, awesome.
Yeah,
because the stuff that like something like "Goodbye Horses" or whatever, like like everyone talks about like the Velvet Underground was being ignored when they were around. Like that seems so insane.
Yeah,
right.
This is like some of the
like they couldn't make a living. I mean, they broke up as a band because they were not successful, which is why bands break up, right?
Yeah,
like, that's insane.
I mean, yeah, it's just saying that out loud. Like the Velvet Underground had to break up because they couldn't make a living. That doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, exactly. So
fuck, that's the world. Okay, well we're coming down the home stretch here. We've got the two questions left, the two quote unquote big ones. So what is the song that means the most to you? And not necessarily because of the song itself, but like the experience or someone you associate with.
I would say all of the record of Love Supreme, just because I listened to it the most in my life.
Do you remember hearing it for the first time?
I do. Yeah. I bought the CD when I was like 15 or 16. I was pretty fortuitous when I was younger of connecting the dots to which led me to Beefheart and certain jazz records pretty early on. And also I was lucky enough they hit me when I needed to hear them, which I think is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was immediately like, this just is what music should sound like.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like because I was playing music at the time too, and I've never tried to play jazz, quote unquote.
Right.
But like that was like a record to me where it's just like, this isn't even like, it doesn't matter what this is. This is just like perfect music.
Yeah.
Like this is what music should sound like, so I would say that. But then also like, the first record I ever bought with my own money was Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair.
Oh, wow.
It's still like one of my favorite records, and a couple of guys in Grails are the same. We've spent a lot of time in the van talking specifically about that record. I can listen to that record, and there's songs on that just were like, I'll never get tired of them. Like, just seemed like the deepest thing ever to me, which is, I don't know, maybe that's surprising to people. I don't know.
It's a really, really great record. That's cool. That was your first record.
It's a great one.
I don't even know what the first record I bought with my own money. God, I had to think about that. The first tape I had the La Bamba soundtrack. But I don't remember if
it's a great soundtrack.
Yeah, and it is. Anytime La Bamba comes on, man, it's a fucking a banger.
Yeah, no, I believe that. I mean, there's probably bands in LA that sound like that now too. That like, I don't know.
Yeah, but Love Supreme, God, I feel like that's like one of the all-time great openings for any piece of music ever. Like just like the gong, and then the melody, and it's just like I don't know. To me, it feels like it's like this curtain being pulled back on like, okay, here's the world you didn't know existed, or like,
Oh, that's great.
oh,
Yeah,
God,
no,
so-
totally, for sure.
so good.
Yeah, no, the pacing of the record's unreal. Yeah, that's a really good way of. Yeah, for sure.
And
I agree with that.
I like the first ever jazz record I owned, and it was somebody gave, I was 18 or something. Somebody gave me Blue Train, so that was like my introduction. And then I, you know,
It's a great record.
yeah, and like you say, like needing to like hearing it when you need to hear it. Like I heard it at the right time, and then started. This was I used to go to fucking Barnes and Noble and buy jazz CDs with my paychecks. Like,
oh, I used to do the same thing. Yeah, if you tell somebody younger how you used to get music, it's crazy. It sounds like a crazy person talking.
And there wasn't like you couldn't just like get online and be like, well, what jazz record? I would just go and randomly get, or I would, I would look at the back of Blue Train and see like who played on it, and then like, oh, here's a record by that person. Let's buy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, 100%.
But
that's absolutely how you find it. I mean, it's a good thing with jazz is like you have to be able to shred to some degree where it's like these guys were not making bad records.
Right.
There's ones that maybe you don't like as much, but they're not.
Right.
I mean, that maybe happened later down the line when, but like the initial heyday of if you're interested in a certain sound of jazz, it's like there's not like bad Blue Note records.
Right.
There's ones you don't maybe like as much, but like it's not like they're fucking making mistakes on the record. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
yeah, and that's
they know what they're doing.
That's like and that's sort of what it became. It was like, well, if I'm just gonna go look for stuff on Blue Note that was in the 60s, and I know it's
totally. Yeah.
But then I remember getting like a Love Supreme, like going further down the Coltrane rabbit hole and going for like I'd mostly been listening to like bops, like the hard bop stuff and bebop stuff, and then heard this, and it was just like, oh, like it just like cracked my head open and was like,
yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, totally, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Well, we're at the end here. One last question. What is, at least as of this moment in time, what would you say is your favorite song?
Oh, you did. I was prepped for this. But I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna say, just because I was thinking about it earlier, was "You're on Your Own Again" by Scott Walker.
Oh,
I think that's just a song. I mean, there obviously is no such thing as your favorite song.
There's your favorite song right now.
You're being, the minute you're being asked, and just because I was thinking about it, I was like, I would say that song is like, you do no wrong with that in my book. It's a perfect song.
It is a perfect song. What do you have? Do you have? Can you pick a favorite Scott Walker record?
I mean, Scott 4 or The Drift for different reasons, obviously.
Right.
They're much different records. But yeah, Scott 4 is just like everything, his existential acid soaked Sinatra
oh my God.
doomed character with those arrangements, with those sort of bar-talky string arrangements, and the lyrics that are just, they stand on their own. Like I only own a few lyric, there's books that have people's collected lyrics, and I think it's called Sundowner is the Scott Walker one, which is, you can just read that as poetry. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's one of the few. There are plenty of lyric books. It's like, God, this is not good.
It doesn't hold on.
But that is not one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, like Scott Walker, and the fact again that he made Scott 4 and he made the Drift, like it's the same person made those records, is so incredible to me. I mean, obviously they're 30 years apart or whatever, but just
but it's like, if you think about how his peers were embarrassing themselves.
Yeah.
And he comes out with that, and he's making something that's ahead of what 22-year-olds are making. Like,
right.
That's, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
It's like, I remember hearing it's like, oh God, what the hell do I do now?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what? Okay.
Like, I'm a fucking fraud.
Cool.
Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that is a perfect place to end it, because Scott Walker is one of the best there ever was. So the Grails record is out. Your record is out. You guys are going, I think Emil just posted a thing. You guys are going back to Europe sometime next year in the spring.
We're going to Europe in April, and then there's going to be some US dates that get announced later. So hopefully we're going to, Yeah, now that at least some of the madness has passed, and things are sort of back to normal, which they're not at all normal,
right.
but maybe a band of musicians can start touring, and it seems like we are. So
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for doing this. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was really fun.
Yeah.
It was really fun talking to you.
Awesome. Once again, a billion thanks to Ilyas Ahmed for taking the time out, talking to me, doing all this. Had a great time. Check out his latest solo album, A Dream of Another, which is on Geographic North, and the new Grails album, which I'm sorry, I'm not going to try. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it is on Temporary Residence Limited. Links to both of those in the show notes. They are both essential listening. And yeah, check out his picks, link to the playlist down there. And as always, you know, I mentioned the Patreon at the top of the show. Mention it one more time, foxydigitalis, or patreon.com/foxydigitalis. $3 a month gets you the Songs of Our Lives stuff. And if that's not for you, that's cool. Hey, use some of that money to buy one of Ilyas's records or support someone else and do some other thing. I don't know. Anyway, that is it for me today. Holler at me on social media. You know where to find me, at Foxy Digitalis, all over the place. Check out the site. I don't know. Just do some stuff. All right. That's it. And until next week, keep on listening to whatever the hell you want.